The American auto industry is valued at $1.5 trillion, and China has just shown the world how much control it truly holds over it. A single export ban was enough to cause total chaos. China halted shipments of rare earth magnets, and the effect was immediate. Ford suspended factory operations, spare parts vanished, and assembly lines across America ground to a halt. No missiles, no threats, no negotiations, just silence and then paralysis. Why did this happen? Because nearly every stage of the rare earth supply chain is controlled by China. There was simply no one else to turn to, and when Beijing said no more, the United States had no plan B. This isn't a future threat or a warning. It already happened. China has proven that it can stop American manufacturing at any moment. US factories depend on raw materials that have not been produced domestically for a long time. So let's examine just how vulnerable US industry really is, and why completely cutting off China might be impossible. Imagine waking up one morning to find that major American factories like Ford, General Motors, and others are no longer building cars. This isn't a movie plot. It's the reality of 2025. Almost without warning, China announced it was halting exports of certain rare earth elements and the products made from them, including dysprosium, terbium, and samarium. These names might not mean much to most people, but without them, you cannot build electric motors, car parts, smartphones, fighter jets, wind turbines, or even medical equipment. Without them, modern manufacturing simply stops. And that is exactly what happened. Within just a few weeks, prices for rare earth elements skyrocketed, and forecasts suggest they will keep climbing. But the bigger problem is not even the price. The supply just vanished. No matter how much money companies offered, if China did not approve the export, nothing moved. Factories were powerless. Even with cash and labor ready, production came to a halt overnight. Shares of Lynas Rare Earths, the only major producer outside China, immediately jumped 12% because the world suddenly realized that industrial power means nothing if China cuts off access to critical materials. Today, companies like Lynas, which mine and process rare earths in Australia and Malaysia, have become the West's last hope, a West that allowed itself to become dependent. The stock surge was a signal from the market. The crisis is real, and time is running out. And if China tightens the screws even more, the global auto industry could come to a complete standstill. Ford was hit first. Its major plant in Chicago, where the Ford Explorer is built, shut down. Management admitted they are barely staying afloat and have no idea what will happen tomorrow. General Motors, Stellantis, and others are facing the same problems. Defense contractors have warned that fighter jet production could stop within 90 days if the materials do not arrive. The White House was stunned. Donald Trump, who always claimed to be tough on China, had to face the most uncomfortable truth. The United States cannot function without Chinese materials. Not for cars, not for electronics, not even for weapons. But the most frightening part is that this wasn't unexpected. China had spent decades building control over these resources, while America watched and did nothing. So how did China become the dominant holder of such a strategic resource? Let's take a closer look. Rare earth materials are not actually that rare. They exist in many countries, including the United States. The main issue is processing. Turning raw ore into usable components requires specialized equipment, chemical technologies, and years of expertise. China invested massive amounts of money into this, while the United States pulled out of the market. Once, America was the global leader in rare earth processing, but in the 1990s, it shut down its facilities due to environmental concerns, and China stepped into the gap and never let go. This wasn't an accident or lucky timing. It was a deliberate gamble. China invested billions of dollars, tolerated pollution, and subsidized the entire supply chain, while others simply backed away. This was strategy, not luck. Over time, Beijing took control not just of mining, but of the entire production cycle. Today, China controls more than 69% of the world's rare earth processing and over 90% of the manufacturing capacity. It is also the global leader in producing magnets, which are used in virtually every electric motor, from cars to drones to fighter jets. And how much of these materials are actually needed? In terms of cost, not much. A single car contains around $100 to $200 worth of such components, but they are absolutely irreplaceable. They manage emissions, power the windows, speakers, and electric motors. One F-35 fighter jet alone contains over 400 kilograms of rare earth elements. The issue isn't the price, it's that without them, nothing works. When China cut off supplies, the entire industry took a hit. Factories stopped, materials ran out, and even conventional gasoline-powered vehicles stopped being assembled. Orders were delayed, and workers were sent home. By the time China announced in June that it would partially resume exports, it was already too late for many companies. To appear fair, Beijing granted temporary 6-month licenses to only 3 major American exporters. The rest are still waiting for approval. And this was no accident. It was calculated. We've seen this move before. Back in 2010, during a conflict with Japan, China also halted rare earth exports. Japanese factories froze, and the message was crystal clear. Now, in 2025, China is repeating the tactic. But this time, the target is not just one country, it's the entire world. This is a new form of warfare. No missiles, no armies, just paperwork, licenses, and export bans. And the truth is that it works. First came the pandemic, then the war in Ukraine, now the rare earth shock. All of it exposed one bitter truth. The global supply chain is dangerously fragile. Most companies don't even know where all their components come from. So when a critical link like China disappears, there's simply no plan B. And that's the core of the problem. America still sees itself as an industrial superpower. But when it comes to rare earths and other vital materials, it is alarmingly dependent. The United States does not control supply, does not process the raw materials, and lacks the infrastructure to catch up quickly. American corporations are now pressuring the White House to ease tensions because they have no alternatives. And it's not just about rare earths. China also dominates the supply of lithium, graphite, cobalt, and key parts of the semiconductor chain. It produces 75% of all lithium-ion batteries in the world for electric vehicles, smartphones, and other tech. It also supplies over 90% of synthetic graphite, a crucial component in batteries. If China expands its restrictions, the tech and auto sectors could freeze overnight. And this is no longer some hypothetical scenario. It's a daily threat sitting on Trump's desk. And the risk is not just to business. This hits Apple, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, even the Pentagon. Any American organization that relies on advanced technology could be paralyzed if China shuts the gates. Yes, the United States still ranks second in the world in rare earth mining. But here's the problem. Mining is only the first step. Without the ability to process and separate these materials, the raw ore is almost useless. And this is where America lags far behind. To kickstart domestic production, the US Department of Defense has invested over $400 million into rare earth-related projects. Companies like MP Materials and USA Rare Earth have begun building processing facilities and permanent magnet plants in Texas. There is hope, of course, but the pace is extremely slow. This kind of infrastructure cannot be built in just a few months. It's expensive, buried in bureaucracy, and stuck in permitting delays. On average, it takes around 18 years to launch a mine globally. In the US, it can take up to 30 years due to environmental reviews and regulatory hurdles. Meanwhile, China is moving full speed ahead. Time is running out, and the stopwatch is still in Beijing's hands. But control over supply is only half the story. The other half is price manipulation. China floods the global market with cheap, state-subsidized rare earth materials. For example, selling neodymium and praseodymium oxide for less than $60 per kilogram. For buyers, it looks like a great deal. But in reality, it's a trap. Outside China, no company can survive at those prices. The cost of production in the US, Australia, and Europe is significantly higher. So when China pushes prices down, competitors simply lose money, even when demand is high. Analysts estimate that at current price levels, only 8 projects outside China will break even by the year 2030. It's like trying to grow a business while your competitor gives the product away for free. Western companies depend on shareholders. They cannot operate at a loss forever. But Chinese giants, backed by the state, play by different rules. This creates a dangerous paradox. The West cannot build a competitive supply chain until prices rise. But China will not stop undercutting until a major trade conflict begins. and that could trigger an even deeper crisis. So, is there a way out? Well, some countries are starting to act. Saudi Arabia, flush with oil money and eager to diversify, is aggressively investing in rare earth mining. It holds rich reserves of heavy rare earth elements, the rarest and most valuable, and the Saudis are willing to spend whatever it takes. Vietnam is moving more quietly, but also making steady progress. With international support, it is expanding processing capacity. It has confirmed reserves, and more countries are now considering it a promising supplier. All of this represents real hope, but only if the United States and its allies are truly ready to invest, share technology, and accept higher short-term costs. That's the price of independence. So be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay updated on the next phase of this power struggle. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next episode.